Welcome to Spotlight on Schools. We focus on Rochester City Schools. I'm your host, Jim Strauss. This is our second of two programs with John Bliss, a longtime Rochester City School teacher. John has taught both within the Rochester City School District and in charter schools. He is the founder of the Urban Choice Charter School. You may recognize his name from several guest essays he has written for the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. He has been critical of the direction of the Rochester City School District, and he has research-based and experience-based ideas about the way things need to change. It's a privilege to have John Bliss back this week. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, last week we reviewed your experience as a teacher in both the public and private worlds. Today we're going to look at some writings, 3 by you and 1 from a scholarly journal. We'll start with the article from Character Education entitled Fostering Resiliency in Kids by Bonnie Bedard. The opening subheading reads as follows, I quote, "Despite overwhelming adversity, many children successfully manage to bounce back. What personal characteristics make this possible, and how can schools create environments that support these children?" You sent me this article to read before our interview. My question for you is, what does it contain that is important? When we talked about this, the first part of this article was attributes of a resilient child, and some of this was kind of revealing to me. One of the attributes of a resilient child is social competence. She went on to talk about social competence as being a child being flexible, having empathy, caring, communication skills, and a sense of humor. Problem-solving skills means the ability to plan and to be resourceful, especially in being able to seek help from other people. Third one, autonomy. Several researchers have identified the ability to separate oneself from a dysfunctional family environment, particularly a family that involves alcoholism or mental illness. And the fourth one, a sense of purpose, being able to have goals, educational aspirations, being persistent, and being hopeful, especially in a situation that looks hopeless. That's a resilient child. Okay, so what in this article stands out to you? Why did you send it to me?
Well, I sent it because, without getting into all of the verbiage, the language that you just described, I sent it because this is doable. There's research that says we can replicate the conditions that foster resiliency in kids. So the main reason why I sent it, and I would encourage anyone to read about resiliency, is, and we know this, they're kids that overcome amazing odds. They go on to achieve things, and you shake your head, and they come from these horrible conditions. So I refuse to believe that kids can't do it. Many people also believe that kids can do it. The question is, why don't they? My point is, there are conditions that schools can create.
Yes.
Caring conditions that turn the switch on so that kids can say, I'm worth something and I can take on the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the three biggies are, I mean, if you're interested in what they are, is first of all, and again, this is not new stuff. Maslow's hierarchy of need. Kids need to be fed, they need to be cared for, the physical needs to be taken care of. But just above that is the kids need to be loved, they need to be cared for. So the schools have to create environments where the kids feel that they're important and that they can trust the people that are around them. The other thing is the participatory piece. Kids need to be a part of the journey that you're taking them on. Regardless, even if they're younger children, they need to see the relevance in whatever you're doing and whatever you're taking them. And the one that I guess caused the most controversy is we need to have high expectations for these kids. I mean, you can care for a child and have structure and routines and have very high expectations. These things don't have to be disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
You can have them and they can mesh very well together. But if you can create these conditions, I mean, years of evidence says that kids can thrive. So I sent it to you, and I would send it to anyone, is why are we not creating more of these conditions?
Mm-hmm. And along with positive expectations, this article suggests they need to have the support to get there.
They do, absolutely.
Yep. One of the things that stood out to me in that article was at the end that teachers also need the same nurturing environment in order for them to flourish as well.
They do, the principals do, and we've got to get over this approach where we're all in separate boxes and we're all in this together. The healthier we are, each one of us is, and we are as a team, the better each one of us is going to do.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the second piece, and this is your most recent editorial to the Democrat and Chronicle, dated February 14th, 2015. It's entitled, City Poverty Isn't New. You spend the first column talking about the cure for poverty being decent jobs. The second column is devoted to a broken city school system. Here's your seventh paragraph, and I quote, "To improve the schools, we must allow the people in them to have more ownership. The current system is too impersonal. The hierarchy and the systems in place do not work efficiently together. They are disconnected and unproductive. More than this, they are mechanical." Can you talk about that?
Well, I like hearing.
You like hearing your own words.
I do. It actually sounds good. And I like the word mechanical.
Yeah.
Schools are emotional places. So why have we designed them from the top down like they're from the Industrial Revolution, like we're all factory workers? We've got to understand that the cures for most kids are going to come from those closest with them, with the teachers and the principals and the parents and the community people. So this kind of centralized approach where policies and procedures and mandates are handed down from some centralized location is lunacy. Mm-hmm. So I look at this system as being this robot, which is the complete opposite what many people on the front lines need.
As if one size fits everybody. The next couple of paragraphs in your essay, you talk about the need for things that are mentioned in the Resiliency article, social emotional connections, high expectations, accountability, intimate relations, areas that are addressed in that article. The last paragraph talks about changes being made not with a spork. For those of you who don't know what a spork is that little thing that they have down in cafeterias at a cross between a spoon and a fork. Not with a spork, but with a chainsaw. What would you cut with that chainsaw?
Well, I don't know if I'd actually get the chainsaw out and cut, but my point I was trying to make was we got to stop with the BS. We got to get to the heart of the matter. We need to sit in a room and we need to look each other in the eyes and we need to be honest and we need to fix this thing. Mm-hmm. And this notion that we can form a committee and outsource the fix, or that we're going to be able to improve conditions for kids and teachers and principals in these schools without feelings getting hurt, it ain't going to happen. People are going to have to let go of control. There's going to be people that are going to get angry. There's people that are going to cry. My point is that we need to view these kids. Hey, put it this way: the Rochester City School District motto right now is treat every child as if you would want your own child to be treated. I dare the superintendent and the rest of the people that work in that district to make that happen on the front lines. Mm-hmm. Because that would be a chainsaw approach, not a spork approach, and it's not happening right now.
I think that the spork chainsaw metaphors talk about it doesn't require tweaks, it requires some big changes.
Huge.
Yeah. All right, let's go to your next article. It's entitled, 4 Kids Asking Why. In the first paragraph, you say that we're all to blame for the sorry state of many Rochester City schools. You explain why you decided to go back into the classroom. You talked about that last week. You end the paragraph by saying this, and I quote, "The grit that many city kids will need to graduate will come from the commitment, compassion, and creativity of the teacher. When will our leaders appreciate and support this?" It goes on to say, you go on to tell the first of 4 stories of former students of yours whose lives are blighted by poverty, neglect, and abuse. They had the ability to succeed in school, but they lack the emotional currency to flourish. In the next paragraph, you ask of the Rochester leaders this question, I quote, "Do they know how bad things are?" I'm wondering if you meant that rhetorically, or do you really wonder whether they know how bad things are?
I wonder it every day. I talk to people about this, and they ask the same question. The conditions for some of these kids, and the teachers and the families, I mean, and I'm sure are conditions within central office and the other hierarchies that are also not great working conditions. I went into I dropped kids off a year or two ago when I was at a school, second or third grade kids, and I walked into a lunchroom. I walked the kids in. The noise level is beyond comprehension. Now I know lunchrooms are loud. This is way beyond what any normal human being could take for more than a few minutes. I saw an older woman sleeping on a table. I assume she was an employee. I saw kids running around. They were playing cards. They were stealing food from one another. It was something out of a movie. It was a Woody Allen movie. It was hard to believe. I began to walk out, and I went to the kids because I wanted to take everything in. I said to one of the girls that was waiting in line, and I literally screamed. I was this close to her, and I said, "Is it always like this?" And she looked at me and she says, "Yes, isn't it horrible?" Now this is a little first or second grader. So I turned to leave, and I'll never forget it. Remember, it's total chaos. And there was a girl sitting at a table right behind me at a lunch table. And she had her ears, she covered her ears, and the tears were streaming down her face. I mean, it was unbelievable. And around her was this complete and total insanity. And I wanted to help her in some way. I had to walk out. It was a sub. Well, I mean, there was nothing. And there's no doubt that this is what this lunchroom was like every day. Mm. And there were people that go in and out of there every day and allow this to happen. Now, I understand teachers and others that are in that particular school are afraid to cross the line. But my point is, you're not going to tell me that the superintendent or one of his chiefs has no clue that this is happening. And if they don't, then what are they doing? It was incredible. And I have a lot of stories like that. Imagine if it, let's go back to the motto. Let's treat every child like we would want our own child treated. Dr. Bansky, Dr. Vargas, would you dare? If this was your daughter or granddaughter, horrible. Horrible.
Let me get to this next part. In the next couple of paragraphs, I got depressed reading them. You question the ability of the superintendent to really grasp the problem. You question the board's ability to grasp the problem and also to maneuver through the minefield of politics. You say that blue ribbon panels write reports that are nicely filed away. You question the mayor's desire to actively engage in the solution to the problem. You say that union leaders, principals, and teachers don't want to rock the boat, that it's just too hard. You say that parents groups feel powerless. You say that colleges, universities, and businesses don't really want to get involved in solutions. But then you offer a three-part solution. We got about a minute and a half before the first break. What's your three-part solution?
There are models out there that will break through this mess. You have to plan, you need to get the people ready, and then you have to implement. But basically, the fix is out there. All we have to do is replicate it. There are schools around the country that have similar conditions that are being successful. We need to get all these people out of the way. We need to put it on the table, and then we all need to stand around and look at it and say, how do we make this happen?
And the third part of your plan is to find the right people.
You have to have the right people to see it through, absolutely.
Okay. Question I'm going to ask you when we come back from break is, well, who will make the plan along with the policies, and who decides who the right people are? But we're going to take a break, come back, we'll talk more with John Bliss. Thank you. Welcome back to Spotlight on Schools. We're talking with John Bliss, a longtime Rochester City school teacher. He's taught both in the Rochester City School District and in the private sector. The question is, who will make the plan for a city school that will solve the problems that we've seen? Who will make the related policies, processes, and procedures? And who decides who the right people are, John?
Well, I don't think that the fix can come solely from within the district itself. I think this idea that that whether you call it a new school unit or a teacher-led model, call it anything that you want, there needs to be some level of independence in creating it, because I don't think people are going to get behind it unless they buy into the people that create it. So if you have kind of the regular group of folks that seem to make all the decisions for the city school district create this thing. I don't think that teachers and parents and the community people are necessarily going to get behind it. I do think an independent group can create the framework. What is the process going to look like? How do we get to whatever this is? What are the steps we have to take? People buy into that. Now, the part of your question where I do think there should be some autonomy in terms of what these things ultimately look like when they service the kids and the families on the school level. But I think the process, the development process needs to be done with input from obviously all the typical stakeholders, but it needs to be done by an independent group so that everybody buys into it.
An independent group, who would be an independent
Well,
group typically?
I'll tell you. So for example, and again, I'm going to completely make this up. So we're going to reach out to Bob Duffy, or we're going to get somebody from the Rochester Business Association to get involved.
Rochester Business Association, completely independent.
Yeah. We're going to reach out to former Mayor Bill Johnson, who's always wanted to see improvements in city schools. We're going to reach out to Carlos Carballata, who was a former regent, who knows a tremendous amount about school. We're going to get a group, a powerful group, but a group that doesn't have any ties, certainly no financial ties to the city school district, that people are going to have faith in, and they're going to they're going to create the development process to say, here's one of these new, you want to know one of these new models, here's what you need to do to get there. Charter schools have a process. There can be a process for doing this. Yep.
Okay, they'll have a plan. They present it to the city school district. They
Correct.
present it to the board?
Correct. They would, essentially what would happen is, the way I see this, and again, they have pilot schools in Boston, so I would follow that model. Everyone would need to agree. There'd have to be transparency or no one's going to buy into this.
Everyone being the union?
Absolutely. The key players who essentially are supposed to be leading everyone else that's under them, they're going to have to basically say, we want this to happen. We're telling everyone now we're supporting it in advance. You guys go ahead and create the process to make this one of these new school models. This is a path you have to follow. We're not going to tell you exactly what we want it to look like, but if you meet certain criteria, we're going to approve you. We're going to give you one of these schools. It all needs to be laid out on the table, and if it's done that way, I guarantee people, there are people now in Rochester that want to do this. I know it. I was one of them, but I mean, I know others. But they're not going to do it unless they know how to get there. They're not going to spend their time doing it.
Okay. Let's talk about East High for a minute. East High was declared a failing school by the State Education Department. The city had to make certain choices and certain recommendations, and they got U of R to sign out. What you're thinking about that? You are hopeful. You told me before in the break that you would bet your house that it was going to be an improvement.
It's a lock.
It's a lock.
Who's Jimmy? Who's the old guy who used to do the gambling? Jimmy
the Greek?
Jimmy the Greek. It's a lock. Bet your house. East High is going to be a better school. I think it'll be dramatically better. I don't know if it's going to contend with academically with the best high schools in Monroe County. U of R had all the cards were stacked for them before. They would never have taken on East High unless they knew in advance that there were going to be certain assurances. And those assurances are the best practices that all the other schools should be following if they want to be more successful. The advantage that U of R had is they're an EPO, an educational partner organization. So almost by design, they're allowed certain autonomies. I mean, I can certainly tell you some of the things that they're going to be doing that other schools can replicate.
They can choose the faculty.
They can
at
choose
least up to 50% coming back, but they can get to choose the other 50% from anyone in the district. Am I correct? Whoever applies.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not only can they do that.
Big card.
What?
That's a big card. That's an ace.
It's huge. So what you can do is sit in a room, and they have a superintendent, they have principals. So you pick like-minded people, and they got to pick any superintendent or principal that they wanted to. I mean, East High calls themselves a district within a district. That's how much autonomy they have. They sit around a table. We all think alike. Let's hire teachers that have the same mindset, the same grit that we have. Now, that's just one of the things is hiring the staff. I mean, there's a whole host of things that they're doing that the district, if they were wise, would be following U of R's lead. No question. The fact that they have the staff coming in for 3 weeks for summer staff development, that's huge. The school
Every school should have people coming in for a period of time.
We come in the day before school starts. That's crazy. They have longer days. They have more reading teachers. They have 4 cleaners. The proposal specifically said we want more cleaners. Why? Because cleaner schools are part of a cleaner culture. Again, they get it. The U of R gets it.
They have a health center. They have a health center. They have social workers, more.
They have the whole package. Now, I'm convinced, and I'm saying this now, and I would say it in front of a larger audience, that the school district can do what East High and U of R are doing. And by the way, they can do it without the additional $10 or $20 million that U of R is getting. They need to make some concessions. They have to get along, which would be entirely a new philosophy for them, but it's very doable.
They have to get along with whom?
One another.
Oh.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the next questions. Actually, the next piece of writing. You wrote a piece called What Schools Must Do. The beginning of your article focuses on the health of its students. You state the following, and I quote, "The schools must act as primary caregiver and ensure that the essential physical, social, and emotional needs of every child are met before academics becomes the primary focus. Priorities have to shift from building a smart person to building a healthy person," end of quote. Is that going to be a hard sell?
It's interesting. I love hearing you read back my stuff. It's an easy sell.
To whom?
Listen, it's an easy sell to everyone on some level. It's a very easy sell completely to the teachers, the parents, the kids, the people that are on the front lines. It's a very easy sell. It's not as easy a sell to those that are more focused on protocol, mandates, processes and procedures, operational people, because there's an emotional element that I'm describing, and I don't think they always fully understand that. Mm-hmm. They're more about the chain of command than they are the heart.
And the chain of command involves a lot of employees. There are a lot of people in the chain of command.
There are far too many people in the chain of command. Yes. Way too many people.
Yeah. In the news recently, we talked about this in the break, that Bohan Vargas has 32 people on his command staff. 32 people. We don't know what they do. That's a lot of people. Okay.
No comment.
Okay.
It's insane.
In the same section, you say, and I quote, "Urban schools must reevaluate where they spend their time and resources." In your opinion, where should they spend less of their time and resources? One of the things is that superstructure, obviously.
Right.
They need to streamline that.
Well, and I don't want to talk, it's interesting, I don't want to talk about discipline, but I do want to talk about school culture. One of the things that several school board members have told me, confirmed for me, and everyone knows this, the key to a successful school is the culture. What do you feel, what's the feeling that you get into a school? You know, you don't need to be an educator when you walk into a school to know if it has a positive school culture. So my point was that you need to develop a school culture that is conducive to learning. And I just don't think a lot of schools, for whatever reason, are not doing this. And there are ways to do it, and they're not doing it.
Mm. Okay. Let's move on. Later on in that section, you identify 5 schools that you say are the best schools in Rochester, among the best. Can you tell me which ones those are, and what do they have in common?
Well, and I just picked 5. School of Inquiry to me is one that jumps out, only because it's a K-12 school. They have their learning philosophy is exponential learning. It's very hands-on. SOTA, School of the Arts, is another school that everyone celebrated. The Children's School, Early College is another successful school. Mm-hmm. And I picked those, but there are certainly other schools and other elements or programs within other schools that are also successful.
And what do they have in common?
Well, they have a lot of things. And again, this is best practice. This is not rocket science. There's a history behind what I'm sharing with you is leadership. They all have stronger leadership. And what do I mean by that? The kind of leaders that are probably going to tell some of the people above them, "No, I don't think you're going to do that to this school right now." Most of them have a small but very vocal parent group, which is very important because they tend to hold people accountable when you have the parents. The schools tend to be smaller. They tend to be rich in terms of literacy and reading and writing and how that's presented with larger blocks, and it's a little more intimate. Now, we don't even talk about the fact that, generally speaking, I would bet the people in those schools and the relationships that those people have with one another are better, are more harmonious than staff in other schools. So there's a whole...
Talking about the culture of staff and the culture of
How do we relate to one another when we walk down the hallways? Are we happy? Do we feel we're part of a larger mission? So again, not rocket science. It might be 5 or it might be 20, but if you look at the successful schools, private, public, charter, it doesn't matter, you're going to find some things that are essential. We got to have those.
All right. In that same paragraph, you say that even these schools struggle to maintain quality because of the instability within the district itself. How does an unstable district hurt these schools?
It's mind-boggling. If you have, and you've always got to change, so I don't want to make it sound like if you're a successful school that the best thing to do is completely leave it alone, because all schools need support. But when you have, if you were, let's use an analogy of a football team, you're the coach of a football team, and you have a successful team, and you have your players revved up and everything else, but you're told, geez, we're not going to play our next home game on this by the owner of the team. We're not going to play the next game here. We're going to go to a field that doesn't have grass, it has AstroTurf. You and all your players are now thrown off your game. Or the footballs that you've been using are going to have a little less air than they had the year before because I'm going to try to win the playoffs.
Oh, the New England Patriots.
Right.
Yes, go ahead.
Right. So even though the chain starts here and it seemingly is disconnected, and in some ways it is, everything's connected. So if you have success here, but it's chaotic or disconnected up here, obviously these two are integrated. So you're not going to be running at 8 cylinders if one of your tires is falling off.
If you don't get the textbooks that you ordered.
If you don't get the
big
text,
one.
absolutely, all those kind of things.
All right. We have only a minute left.
Yep.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, we're out of time. We've been talking with John Bliss about the need for change in the Rochester City School District and what that change should look like. John, thank you for joining us. I've enjoyed these 2 weeks
I hope
very much.
people learn something. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, folks, for watching Spotlight on Schools, and I'll see you next time. Good night.